Hello everyone, it's really nice to be here with you today. My name's Tom Denbigh, I'm a poet and I'm going to be talking to you today, or doing some poems about nature and climate. I write a lot about these things anyway, but it's really nice to do a set, I think, when a set on something that everyone's very aware of right now and seems particularly pertinent. You may notice during my set I disappear and appear in other places. That's had a bit of variation into a slightly invariable world right now. I thought I would start my set with a poem about climate change, so really just jumping at the deep end. My day job, or my other job that I do, is as a climate change scientist, and I've always been fascinated by it. We've known about it for a very long time, and one of the things I find so interesting about climate change is that though we know the facts, we know, sea levels are going to rise by X or temperatures will rise by X, it's very, very hard to make art about, I find, because you're not telling anyone anything new. So it's not like other kind of science-linked poetry or writing. And what you are telling someone is both very easy to understand, as in it is a fact, but also impossible to comprehend because it has such an emotional consequence and has such a big impact that we haven't yet kind of seen. And so, this poem's a bit about that. This poem is called ppm, which stands for parts per million, and is about kind of climate change and, I guess, graphs and statistics. ppm. The fact is, they're not facts until they happen. That terrifying tearing sound as many futures are ripped into single present. As graphs jaggedly jump, settle, twist, but always moving out of the dotted theoretical into the thick red line of past fact. Did you know statistics are often a couple of years old? The emissions data is present, but papers take so long to get published or data to be reviewed that the panic is last year's or the year before's, really. The graph will show us choking long after it has already happened. Did you know that at 1,000 ppm, our brains could reduce by 20%, and that this could happen by 2100. Children born today destined for weakened brains and rooms for the rich to live in with lowered CO2. What's there to write about? Nothing more than this. All the things the world could become shrink by the day with each jerk upwards of a thick red line. Jesus fucking Christ, it's too big to write about, too boring, too slow, too fast. These gasping moments of realization slowly sink into our existence like waves, like day to night, like a CO2 time graph with winter, summer, dip surges shooting upwards into infinity with gentle undulations. So this next poem is about extinction. I did an event recently where I met up with some other poets and we wrote poems for something called Lost Species Day, which commemorates animals or plants or whatever that's gone extinct. Related to this, during my undergraduate, I studied plant camouflage, and there is this amazing plant that is camouflaged when it's very young. When it is medium size, it is spiky and no animal would want to eat it. And then when it gets above 3 meters, its leaves all become normal. And it does this in response to a bird called the moa. When it's small, the moa can't see it. When it's medium sized, the moa doesn't want to eat it because it's so spiky. When it's above 3 meters, it's too high for the moa to eat. And so it doesn't get eaten. Except the moa, which is a large flightless bird native to New Zealand, is extinct and has been for hundreds of years. And so there's this plant, the New Zealand lancewood, that has evolved in response to a bird that isn't there anymore. So it's won, it's no longer being predated, but it still acts as if the bird's there hunting for it. And because I'm a poet and that seems like a very poetic thing, I wrote this poem about it, which is called Winning the Red Queen's Race. First there is relief, followed by celebration. Lavish parties where they gorge themselves on water and soil and vomit profusely into the undergrowth. Suddenly, the lancewood are crying, flocking to the shore in great heaving crowds. The children run around, fluffing leaves, pretending, pecking at the ground, at each other in mockery. The rest line up above the waves, sing great keening notes, stalk the forest listlessly, crying, celebrating, crying, stumbling between parties and funerals till they can't tell the difference. The adults are, by and large, still relieved, but sometimes nostalgic for the good old days, the up, down, cut, thrust, bite and spike of life. The youngest whisper to each other of the monster in the forest, and teenagers, as teenagers are wont to do, write poems and tell stories of the bird and the plant that fell in love, and of hunger, doomed affection, and missing something they never knew. The lancewood wander the forest on ponderous trunks, striding for hours. Some of them play chess against themselves and always win. The lancewood are lonely, as all things are, but hang their loneliness on the stories their grandfathers told them, listening for the sound of wing beats in the sky. My next poem is about tamer nature. It's about gardening. And I think a lot of people have found solace in gardening in lockdown. And the next poem's very much about that, and also very much about sharing a space with someone and lockdown in general. The poem is called Weeding. It was the perfect time to murder you, really. Inevitable, too. The first 2 weeks confirmed my concerns, and when quarantine was extended by an indeterminate amount, it was surprisingly easy. I never thought I'd use the avocado destoner that your aunt got us, but I guess it came in handy. Squeezed between your ribs perfectly. Self-care, I whispered as you died. I have to fit it in at some point. A little me time. The neighbours still don't know. Never able to tell those two nice lads apart. I am you on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. Myself on every other day, except for Sunday, when I am both of us, and we shag loudly and obnoxiously in the spare room. I'm glad we had already begun landscaping the garden, but miss you sometimes when it comes to digging holes. When all this madness is over, I'm sure we can work this small inconvenience out. But for now, some things are best left buried. One of the things I think poetry is best known for is its cataloguing of the beauty of nature, and that is something incredible. But one of the things I find most fascinating about nature is its strangeness, its weirdness, and the way we slightly fear it. This poem is about that. It's called An Education. They say if you take a new bird in that raw, eyes still stuck down with albumin state, and give it to another parent, a wolf, rabbit, tiger, it will believe it is that. See itself mirrored in the claws of the tiger, its call a tiny roar. Grow into the space it must be something it isn't. Till one day, you have a tiger with only the body of a bird, stalking through the grassland, not a bird, never that, just a feathered tiger. What if you take, instead of a bird, a newborn baby, leave it in the deepest, darkest woods of all, eyes still sticky with albumin, then come back in 18 years, not to a human, but to a forest in the shape of a man. So thank you so much for having me, Hertfordshire. I've really enjoyed myself this evening. If you like, you can check me out on Twitter at Tom_Denbigh. And yeah, just thanks for a nice time. I hope you enjoyed yourself. My last poem tonight, it's an old one. I thought you guys might like it anyway. I think I won one of my first slams of it. But yeah, it's one from the archives, really. And for the purpose of this poem, you have to suspend your disbelief, and if you can, imagine me as the personification of Mother Earth. This poem is called Down to Earth. And it goes like this. Oi, it's a bit much, love. I mean, it's bad enough that when we first met you smoked, but recently I've started to choke on your noxious fumes, and to be honest, dear, my eyes smart, and I can't help but cry acid tears, and I'm looking so much worse than my 4.5 billion years. You used to call me bountiful, and now I wonder if you just meant fat, because you've liposucked my mountains, and at my forests you've hacked. In fact, after I let you go down under on me, you made me trim my bush and you spat in my seas. You coerced me a little into that chemical peel, and it stung like a bastard, and just imagine how it made me feel. And now, instead of talking, you just want to frack. Well, I'd prefer it, babe, if you kept your drill away from my cracks. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours, but that doesn't mean you're free to mine my shores, critique and drain my oily pores. You took my gold as well, my lover, and then I find out you're chatting with another. That's right. I know about Mars and all of the Voyager missions to afar, and I've ignored your little soirees to the moon, but buck up your ideas, my love, or soon I'll fight back with wave or monsoon. But with the San Andres fault round my waist and the tramp stamp of USA across my face, I know I'm looking a right old mess, and I know you've plotted my hidden debts, but I still want you, love. Why can't you see? So let's share that Lamborghini, just you and me.